and that these are the proper places for affording assistances of this kind to gentlemen of all stations and degrees, cannot, I think, with any colour of reason be denied. For not one of the objections which are made to the Inns of Court and Chancery, and which I have just enumerated, will hold with regard to the universities. Gentlemen may here associate with gentlemen of their own rank and degree, nor are their conduct and studies left entirely to their own discretion, but regulated by a discipline so wise and exact, yet so liberal, so sensible and manly, that their conformity to its rules, which does at present so much honour to our youth, is not more the effect of constraint than of their own inclinations and choice. Neither need they apprehend too long an avocation hereby from their private concerns and amusements, or, what is a more noble object, the service of their friends and their country. This study will go hand in hand with their other pursuits. It will obstruct none of them, it will ornament and assist them all. But if, upon the whole, there are any still wedded to monastic prejudice that can entertain a doubt how far this study is properly and regularly academical, such persons, I am afraid, either have not considered the constitution and design of an university, or else think very meanly of it. It must be a deplorable narrowness of mind that would confine these seats of instruction to the limited views of one or two learned professions. To the praise of this age be it spoken, a more open and generous way of thinking begins now universally to prevail. The attainment of liberal and genteel accomplishments, though not of the intellectual sort, has been thought by our wisest and most affectionate patrons, and very lately by the whole university, no small improvement of our ancient plan of education, and therefore I may safely affirm that nothing, how unusual soever, is, under due regulations, improper to be taught in this place which is proper for a gentleman to learn. But that a science which distinguishes the criterions of right and wrong, which teaches to establish the one and prevent, punish, or redress the other, which employs in its theory the noblest faculties of the soul and exerts in its practice the cardinal virtues of the heart, a science which is universal in its use and extent, accommodated to each individual, yet comprehending the whole community, that a science like this should have ever been deemed unnecessary to be studied in an university is matter of astonishment and concern. Surely, if it were not before an object of academical knowledge, it was high time to make it one, and to those who can doubt the propriety of its reception among us, if any such there be, we may return an answer in their own way, that ethics are confessedly a branch of academical learning, and Aristotle himself has said, speaking of the laws of his own country, that jurisprudence, or the knowledge of those laws, is the principal and most perfect branch of ethics. From a thorough conviction of this truth, our munificent benefactor, Mr. Viner, having employed above half a century in amassing materials for new modelling and rendering more commodious the rude study of the laws of the land, consigned both the plan and execution of these, his public-spirited designs, to the wisdom of his parent university. Resolving to dedicate his learned labours to the benefit of posterity and the perpetual service of his country, he was sensible he could not perform his resolutions in a better and more effectual manner than by extending to the youth of this place those assistances of which he so well remembered and so heartily regretted the want. And the sense which the university has entertained of this ample and most useful benefaction must appear beyond a doubt from their gratitude in receiving it with all possible marks of esteem, from their alacrity and unexampled dispatch in carrying it into execution, and, above all, from the laws and constitutions by which they have effectually guarded it from the neglect and abuse to which such institutions are liable. We have seen an universal emulation. Who best should understand or most faithfully pursue the designs of our generous patron? And with pleasure we recollect that those who are most distinguished by their quality, their fortune, their station, their learning, or their experience, have appeared the most zealous to promote the success of Mr. Viner's establishment. End of section 3.
The advantages that might result to the science of the law itself, when a little more attended to in these seats of knowledge, perhaps would be very considerable. The leisure and abilities of the learned in these retirements might either suggest expedients, or execute those dictated by wiser heads, for improving its method, retrenching its superfluities, and reconciling the little contrarieties which the practice of many centuries will necessarily create in any human system, a task which those who are deeply employed in business and the more active scenes of the profession can hardly condescend to engage in. And as to the interest, or, which is the same, the reputation of the universities themselves, I may venture to pronounce that if ever this study should arrive to any tolerable perfection, either here or at Cambridge, the nobility and gentry of this kingdom would not shorten their residence upon this account, nor perhaps entertain a worse opinion of the benefits of academical education. Neither should it be considered as a matter of light importance that, while we thus extend the premieria of university learning, and adopt a new tribe of citizens within these philosophical walls, we interest a very numerous and very powerful profession in the preservation of our rights and revenues. For I think it is past dispute that those gentlemen who resort to the Inns of Court with a view to pursue the profession will find it expedient, whenever it is practicable, to lay the previous foundations of this, as well as every other science, in one of our learned universities. We may appeal to the experience of every sensible lawyer, whether anything can be more hazardous or discouraging than the usual entrance on the study of the law. A raw and unexperienced youth, in the most dangerous season of life, is transplanted on a sudden into the midst of allurements to pleasure, without any restraint or check but what his own prudence can suggest, with no public direction in what course to pursue his inquiries, no private assistance to remove the distresses and difficulties which will always embarrass a beginner. In this situation he is expected to sequester himself from the world, and by a tedious lonely process to extract the theory of law from a mass of undigested learning, or else by an assiduous attendance on the courts to pick up theory and practice together, sufficient to qualify him for the ordinary run of business. How little, therefore, is it to be wondered at that we hear of so frequent miscarriages, that so many gentlemen of bright imaginations grow weary of so unpromising a search, and addict themselves wholly to amusement, or other less innocent pursuits, and that so many persons of moderate capacity confuse themselves at first setting out, and continue ever dark and puzzled during the remainder of their lives. The evident want of some assistance in the rudiments of legal knowledge has given birth to a practice which, if ever it had grown to be general, must have proved of extremely pernicious consequence. I mean the custom, by some so very warmly recommended, to drop all liberal education, as of no use to lawyers, and to place them, in its stead, at the desk of some skilful attorney,